Before 400 chapters, this random print on Frankie's t-shirt foreshadowed the Mighty Gear 5 transformation, and this color spread out of nowhere foreshadowed Ace's death 50 chapters before it occurred. These are only 2 times when One Piece predicted the future. In the later parts of this video, we will discuss about 27 times when One Piece teased something crucial that exactly 96.47% of you missed. For example, on the cover page of Volume 45, we see Buggy, Shanks, Teach, and Luffy, which at that time didn't make any sense until chapter 1053 dropped, when the new Yonkos were revealed. People went crazy after this, as Oda had teased it for almost 800 chapters before. Oda is undoubtedly a genius when it comes to foreshadowing, and he proved it yet again when he teased the concept of mantra in Skypiea arc. Mantra is like a sixth sense that enabled Enel and his group to sense the presence of others, even if they were hidden from view or too far away to see naturally. This was a subtle nod towards the Kanbonshoku haki, or the observation haki, which was explained much later by Rayleigh in chapter 597. During the Wano arc, we learned about Ryu, an advanced form of the armament haki that allowed users to destroy things from within without affecting the outside, giving the effect of attacking without touching. Did you guys know that Ryu is actually introduced in the pre-time skip way back in chapter 597 when Sentinmaru used it to deflect Luffy's attack without even touching him? Another foreshadowing that blew my mind was in Arlong Park, where Hachi stated that he is the second best swordsman of Fishman Island, which didn't grab our attention at first. But it connected directly to the Fishman Island arc, where we got to know about Hyuzo, the best swordsman on Fishman Island. Talking about Fishman Island, Jinbei was introduced way later in the story, and he has recently joined the Straw Hat crew. However, did you guys know that we got Jinbei's name drop in a very early part of the series, in chapter 69 to be precise, where this guy mentions him? Moving on to the next amazing foreshadowing. In chapter 7, a Marine revealed that some pirates have joined the Marines to be spies. This made sense way later in the story, when we came to know about Virgo in Dressrosa arc. Next up is the time when Blackbeard claims he's going to make a show that will shake the world. Come on, y'all are smart enough to get it. Yeah, it was a pointer toward Teach getting the Tremor fruit in the future. Blackbeard plotted against Ace and got him killed for the Tremor fruit. But did you guys know that Oda predicted Ace's death in a chapter cover that was released 50 chapters before it occurred? On the cover page of chapter 520, Luffy is playing cards, and it seems like he lost the game. He is seen holding a single card in his left hand with Brooks' face on it, which symbolizes death. He has plenty of cards on his right hand, and the one on the rightmost is the Ace of Spades, which symbolizes his brother, Ace. His facial expressions are almost the same as when Ace died in his arms. Well, we have to admit that Ace's demise was immensely painful for us as an audience, and getting a little of his backstory in Wano arc took us down a bittersweet memory lane. However, did you guys know that Oda hinted about Ace's Wano trip back in chapter 555, where Ace reveals to Oars Jr. that he learned how to make a casa hat in Wano? In chapter 507, Rayleigh mentioned Clover having the voice of all things, and later we found out that even Luffy has it. Actually, Luffy having the voice of all things has been hinted at in the very initial chapters of One Piece, where Luffy was able to communicate with the dog Shushu. So this was level 1 of the One Piece foreshadowing moments. The next level is going to be even more crazy, so stay tuned. Another time Oda went nuts with his foreshadowing was the time when some people from the Drum Island explained that a traveler came to that island, and on that day there was not a snow day, which is pretty unusual for Drum Island. Most of us did not realize it on the first watch, but this traveler was Ace, and this statement was a subtle nod to Ace's fire powers, which were later revealed. Hachinosu, or the Pirates Island, was shown for the very first time in chapter 925. However, this was not the first time it was mentioned in the anime or manga. During the Davy Back fight arc, Robin mentioned the invention of Davy Back fight on the Pirates Island. Dang, this connection goes way back. Okay, so it is proven that Oda isn't even a human, and his next foreshadowing will prove this. When Garp met Luffy during the post-Enies Lobby arc, he was able to hit him, which surprised Sanji because Luffy is made of rubber and cannot be hurt with bare hands. This was also a little hint of armament haki before the time skip. Blackbeard was revealed to be the new Yonko in chapter 650 out of nowhere. What if I say that Oda hinted to us about that too? In chapter 434, Shanks says that Blackbeard would come for Whitebeard's position. Shanks was referring to Whitebeard's role as the Yonko in this instance. Let's move on to the next detail. Morley was introduced as one of the executives of the Revolutionary Army in episode 880, but surprisingly, this wasn't the first time he made it into the story. In chapter 538, 1978, Ivankov mentioned that a digging devil fruit eater made his new Kamo Island. This was none other than Morley, who has eaten Oshi Oshinomi, which allows him to mold the ground as if it is made up of clay. Some people blame Oda for Sabo's inclusion in the story, claiming that Oda added Sabo out of nowhere and that it was a forced addition to the storyline of compensating for Ace. But that's not true. Oda teased Sabo multiple times in the story before his introduction. For example, this panel of chapter 558 says, "From today on, we two are brothers," which is meant for Ace and Luffy when they shared the cup of sake and became brothers. But if you look very closely, you will also see the edge of a third bowl, which is very slightly visible but is there. Aside from that, the tattoo on Ace's arm indicates that Oda intended to include the third brother from the start. The next piece of foreshadowing literally left me speechless. Hear me out. Kanjuro turned out to be the traitor among the Akazaya samurai. As usual, Oda hinted at it, because prior to revealing his true drawing abilities to use his devil fruit powers in chapter 976, Kanjuro always drew with his left hand, causing his drawings to be sloppy. Similarly, as much as I despise Momonosuke, I assumed he was just trolling us when he said he had met Roger. Later, he revealed that he came from 20 years ago and did meet Goldie Roger. Listen, Usopp has a habit of boasting, but what if I told you that Oda uses Usopp's lies to foreshadow some future events? For example, Usopp would tell Kaya a story about meeting a giant goldfish in the southern seas to cheer her up. He claims that goldfish poop was so large that he mistook it for an island and anchored his ship there. This legend didn't take long to come true, because during the Little Garden arc, we saw a giant goldfish that almost rivaled the size of a sea king. One more lie Usopp told Kaya is about the existence of an island where dwarves reside, which also turned out to be true during Dressrosa arc, where we met the Tontada tribe. Well, Usopp isn't the only one among the Straw Hats who can foreshadow things. Luffy also has the ability. For example, when Luffy draws his ideal shipwright, who vaguely resembles Frankie in episode 320, Kokoro says the way to Fishman Island passes through the Florian Triangle and mentions ghost ships with a dead crew. Luffy misunderstands and exclaims very excitedly, "We can meet skeletons that are alive!" This obviously foreshadows meeting Brook. Okay, so this was level 2 of One Piece foreshadowing. The third level is going to be a hell of a lot crazier than this. But before that, if you are watching this video, that means you are loving it, so why don't you subscribe? Thanks. Talking about Straw Hats, Sanji is the son of Vinsmoke Judge, the king of the Germa Kingdom. We were all shocked when we found out, but Oda had already given us hints twice, when Sanji calls himself Mr. Prince in Alabasta, and when Sanji's wanted poster says only alive rather than dead or alive. Oda had left tons of clues which we can only grasp on our second watch or read. For instance, Doflamingo mentions the Age of Smiles in chapter 504, which didn't make any sense at first, but later we found out that artificial Zoan devil fruits are called smiles. Furthermore, in the color spread for chapter 310, we see Luffy, Usopp, and Robin dressed as samurais, with a pink dragon hovering above them. This is a hint about Momonosuke's dragon form, and if you look closely, you can see Kazuki's crest symbol on Luffy's clothing. Bruh, I wonder how Oda planned all of this stuff years before even the introduction of these characters. Bro is certainly a genius, and the next foreshadowing will prove that. Did you guys remember this girl, Moda? Yes, she is one of the people who were saved by the Revolutionary Army during the Reverie arc. Well, Oda has already introduced her in the story on the cover page of chapter 278, where Ace meets her. Listen, Sanji has both of his brows on the same side, but because he hides one of his eyes with his bangs, we never get to see them. But Oda gave us a hint about what they look like in chapter 173, where we got to see Sanji's Denden Mushi, and you can clearly see Sanji's curly brows on that. The cover page of chapter 1028 already spoiled Straw Hat's power-ups in Wano before the reveal. Luffy is dressed as Ken from Street Fighter here, but Ken doesn't have flaming hair, so this is a very obvious reference to Nika. Sanji appears to be an inkling from Splatoon, and given that he unlocked his exoskeleton in chapter 1028, it is understandable why Oda made him an inkling on this cover page. Inklings appear to be boneless and respawn after being splattered. This is not exactly like for like, but it is very similar to him getting crushed this chapter and then regenerating almost instantly. Furthermore, Inklings appear to be known for their attack speed and combos, which are very Sanji-like. Zoro is Link from The Legend of Zelda, a skilled swordsman who possesses the Master Sword, which is equivalent to Zoro acquiring Enma. And Robin looks almost the same as her power-up during her fight with Black Mariah. Luffy's Gear 5 was hinted at several times, including in the Zoo Island arc, where we see Frankie's shirt. It shows the word Hito, and if read from H to O, it creates the letter N, which stands stands for Nika. Furthermore, the symbol O resembles the sun, indicating the sun god. We have to admit that One Piece has some crazy foreshadowing moments. But did you guys know that it has some mistakes too? Click on this video to find out 24 major mistakes in One Piece.